Chipmunks, welcome to the AMP Cycling Ride Review Series. I'm your host, Angry Chipmunk, and today we're in the US state of South Dakota taking on the Needles Scenic Highway Ride. This route is available on Rouvy, so let's get right to it. This is a fairly short route at 21.5 kilometers with a medium amount of elevation gain at 625 meters. The whole ride averages just 3% and will max out at 13%. There's one Strava segment included on Rouvy and just the one on Strava as well. About half of the climbing is contained within the one segment, with the rest spread fairly evenly throughout. There are a few small hills before you get to the segment, with the first coming pretty much straight away. It's not a very long hill at only around 340 meters, but you're still going to see a peak gradient of 11%. It ramps up towards the end before leading into a nice downhill. After the downhill, there's another small incline of about 1.5 kilometers. It's pretty mellow for the first half, with the gradients in the 3 to 4% range. The second half sees that up to around 5 to 6%, with a peak around 7.5%. This is not really a difficult hill in itself, and you can make it easier by using the downhill preceding it to come in pretty hot. Again, there's a nice long downhill before you get to the longer, slower climbs. The first of the long climbs is at the 4.6 kilometer mark, is about 6.4 kilometers long, with 160 meters of elevation gain, averaging 2.5% and peaking at 9%. There's nothing about this that's really a climb, except that it's mostly positive gradients. You can chug away at this one pretty steadily without any troubles. The steepest section is right at the end before a small downhill leads to the segment. I wouldn't worry about pushing this part too hard, as it really does stay mostly in that 3 to 5% range, so you're not going to wipe out all of your energy reserves before getting to the tougher climb. The included segment is the Needles Climb. It's at the 12 kilometer mark, is 6.6 kilometers long, with 324 meters of elevation gain, averaging 4.9% and peaking at the route max of 13%. Annoyingly, this is one of those segments where you actually start climbing a couple of hundred meters before the segment actually starts. The start of the climb is really not that tough. You'll be seeing a lot of lumpy 3 to 7% blips for around half of it. They are all pretty short, so not really something you need to worry about changing gears for. Around 2 kilometers into the climb, the gradient starts to pick up quite a bit, and you'll be seeing more sections above 6%, but still plenty of low gradients breaking it up. The steepest bit is right in the middle. There's a rather nice mellow downhill section just after it, so you can push this one pretty hard if you're so inclined. The end of the segment is not the end of the route this time, so you get a nice 3 kilometer cruise into the finish line in which you can enjoy the scenery. Despite the moderate elevation gains on this one, you'll actually be wanting a pretty good warm-up with a moderate cooldown. The first thing you do on the route is a small pinch climb, and it does peak at that 11%. I would give it at least 10 minutes here. There is that nice 3 kilometers into the finish, so you can reduce the amount of cooldown needed if you cruise into it. And as always, I suggest pre-fueling your ride and including plenty of protein with that. This isn't such a long ride that you're going to be wanting heaps to eat during the ride itself. I would say if you've pre-fueled, you really only need about 10 grams before you get to the big climb. It's not even that necessary unless you want to push for a pretty good segment time. It's also possible to just fuel that climb with a faster acting carb choice. I don't usually like fueling rides that are this short aside from the mountain passes, so beware of your carb intake and don't overfuel. The view on this ride is surprisingly good. I didn't expect much from the route, so having these huge rock formations and enclosed roads all around was really nice. The weather was beautiful on the day that they filmed, and it really sets a nice tone to the video. The only downside is that this looks like a really popular driving route, so there's heaps of cars and motorbikes along the way. I didn't expect much from this ride, so it was a real pleasure to see how good it actually was. I went at a moderate pace for this route and completed it in just over 1 hour on 100% difficulty emulation. With needing a bit of a longer warm-up but having the ability to shorten the cooldown, I would say to budget anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half. It isn't super short, but it could fill a moderate time gap. Overall, this is a fantastic route that was surprisingly nice, and I would definitely recommend for the intermediate level rider and up. The main hill segment isn't all that difficult, but at over 6 kilometers long, it would probably be a struggle for the newer rider who's still working their pacing for such things. It is a fun and relatively quick ride with enough elevation gain to still be worth your while. For this route, I give a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed this one more than I expected I would. The only downside is the busy roads, and I don't think that could be helped, but it's still a detractor. For the climb, 3 out of 5. It's not overly difficult nor overly easy, somewhere in the middle, enough challenging sections to be interesting without being too intense. For the view, 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed the large rock formations and the forest views. Didn't at all expect something so nice. Again, the crowds were a letdown here, but what can you do? And overall, 4 out of 5. Definitely keep this one in your ride queue for when you need a shorter ride or if you're looking to up your elevation gains. Well, that's it for this review, so thanks for watching, Chipmunks. Please let me know what you think of the Needles Scenic Highway when you complete it. I'll leave you to finish the rest of the ride, and I'll see you next week for another review. Until then, ride on, Chipmunks, ride on.